Hey, Pokemon players and judges, we have a bit of a surprise topic for today. I was planning on doing a podcast on how to survive a deck check, and hopefully maybe I'll still get to that this weekend. But there's been a major change in the penalty guidelines. Pokemon issued their quarterly update to their guidelines and ban lists and so forth, and no major changes to anything except they slipped in a fairly drastic major change on the penalty guidelines where prize penalties and multi-prize penalties no longer exist and have been replaced by something similar but significantly different called double prize penalty and quad prize penalty. Now, how these are different in previously in the prize and multi-prize penalties, when it was issued, the opponent would have the option to draw cards equal to one prize or up to three for the multi-prize penalty. And the reason it was an option was because there are cards that, when a player's behind on prizes, activate extra power, extra abilities, and so therefore that opponent, that player, could make a mistake, get a prize penalty, and get more powerful cards in their hand and gain an advantage because of that. And that's actually what this is meant to address. So basically, instead of one prize penalty that the opponent actually gets to take in their hand and get an extra card in their hand, it's marked down as a two prize penalty, and the opponent is notified that in order to win the game, they will need to take two less prizes. So if it's a 6-prize game, they only need to take 4 prizes to win the game. If they've already taken 4 prizes, they immediately win. So that's a nice big advantage, but it also compensates that they're not getting extra cards in their hand, and the opponent is not getting counter catcher or counter energy or things like that activated. So it's actually a pretty good solution to this issue. We just need to make sure that the word gets out. So if you either the judges make sure judges in your area, if you're a player and you know your judges are not aware of this, point them to the new penalty guidelines. So let's start off with where the penalty guidelines are. Okay, so we will put the links here for people to find them. But basically, on the Pokemon.com page, you would go to your Pokemon Trainer Club page and go into Player Information. And in Player Information, there is Rules and Resources. So right here, we'll put the direct link for that. It is Pokemon.com/us/playpokemon/about/tournaments, rules, and resources. And there's a lot of hyphens and so forth in there, but we'll have the actual address written here for people to see. Now, once you go there, you will scroll down to the judge and organizer resources, and there you will see the Pokemon TCG penalty guidelines. So that's where this will be found. Now, this is a fairly direct switch of one penalty for another. So everything that used to get a prize penalty is now getting the double prize penalty. Everything that used to get a multi-prize penalty is now getting the quad prize penalty. Big thing with the double prize penalty is the opponent is going to get notified that they need to take 2 less prizes. There's going to be a slip given, and the players need to initial or sign that slip. It's a penalty slip, acknowledging that 2 fewer prizes are going to be taken. And personal suggestion, they don't say to do this, but I think it's a good idea. That slip should be put on top of 2 of the prizes as a reminder that those prizes don't need to be taken. Now, the important thing here is that you're not declaring those particular prizes to be unavailable. If a player wants to choose one of those prizes, that's fine. Alternately, if the player's playing Gladion, they can certainly search among those prizes to take what they're looking for. So it's just being used as a reminder. That slip then needs to be turned in at the end of the round along with the signed match slip. Okay, so it's basically a tracking device. It's an acknowledgement of the players. It's to protect against the I forgot or that players ignore it. Okay, it's something that they're supposed to do. Similarly, the quad prize penalty is 4 prizes, and that's for a more major thing. It's going to be given less often, but there are some cases where quad prize penalties are given. And similarly now, instead of only needing to take 4 prizes to win the game, the player in a six prize game only needs to take 2. So quite often, if it's mid-game or late game, that's going to be the game. So that doesn't mean it's equal to a game loss. It may have that same effect, but similarly to damage and placing damage counters are not the same thing. They may have the same effect. These don't have the same meaning, even if they wind up having the same end result. So it's important to issue the proper penalty. Now, speaking of issuing the proper penalty, 2 things I want to talk about there. Number 1 is Tier 1 versus Tier 2. For some of the penalties, it makes a difference whether you're in a Tier 1 tournament or a Tier 2 tournament. So just to make sure that all judges and players know what the difference between a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 event are. Tier 1 events are your local gaming tournaments. They could be just your local weekly tournament. They could be a pre-release. They could be a league challenge, and they could be a league cup. Any tournament like that. A Tier 2 tournament is pretty much regionals and above. Your regional events, your internationals, opens or special events that are held occasionally around the world that give prizes and championship points similar to a regional. Those would all, and of course the World Championship, those would all be Tier 2. So for most judges out there, if you're not judging at a regional, if you're judging local, you're going to be using the Tier 1 level penalties. So a lot of the gameplay error minor penalties are going to be warnings as opposed to double prize penalties. But that doesn't mean you're not going to use it, because you need to escalate if you're getting repeated penalties. Okay, so when are you going to be issuing a double prize penalty? In Tier 2 events for gameplay error major, or in Tier 1 events for gameplay error major if it's repeated and you need to escalate. Those would get double prize penalties. So here's an important thing I want to discuss as well. A lot of these errors can be corrected without permanent damage to the game state. So for example, playing a second energy. Oh, played the second energy, pick it back up, it's back in the hand, game state's back to perfect. Drawing an extra card. If the card hadn't been observed and it's back in the deck and shuffled, or even if it has been observed but it's, it's that card and it's back in the deck and shuffled, there's basically no damage to the game state. Or let's say a bad shuffle, and you caught the bad shuffle and now they're going to do a proper shuffle, but you're giving a penalty for a bad shuffle. All of those things don't have a permanent damage to the game state if they're caught and corrected quickly. However, they still should be getting the double prize penalty. And the reason for this, if you, and I mentioned it at the time and I'll go back to it, the definition on the double prize penalty is not significant damage to the game state, it's significant effect on the game state. And here's why you want to make sure to give that penalty rather than de-escalating to a warning. You don't catch every time these things happen. There's many times a player will attach a second energy in a turn and it's not caught. There's many times a player will draw an extra card and it's not caught. There's many times a player will have shuffled poorly and it's not caught. And if all they're getting is a warning, then it's basically, I can make this mistake and it's free the first time and I'll just do it again and again because it's not that big a deal. That's why they need to be getting this penalty, because we don't want them to continue the behavior, and they need to know that it's serious. So they draw the extra card, even if it's back, you know, we know the right card and it's back in the deck, they still get the double prize penalty. They attach the extra, go to attach the second energy, the opponent says, oh, you already attached an energy. Oh, okay. Oh, not a take back. I mean, you have to take it back, but they don't not get the penalty. So it's important. They need to be getting the penalty to cut down, number one, on repeated mistakes, and number two, to cut down on mistakes where they're not really mistakes. Not to accuse any particular player, but Pokemon needs, well, there's a lot of money involved in the game now. Players need to be playing correctly. The penalties need to be applied correctly. The other place where you'll see the double prize penalty now is in the legal list, legal deck. Most deck issue problems have a game loss associated with them. The one that does not, that previously had a prize penalty, was the legal list, legal deck, where both were legal, but they just didn't match. Okay, so now that gets the double prize penalty. Again, the opponent cannot decline. Any of these errors, the opponent no longer has the option of declining. And the final thing, which is not in the documents but needs to be discussed, is in match play, in Top Cut, where in Game 2, where the rule is that if 4 prizes have been taken, that game counts. How does this work now with the new double prize penalty? And the way it works is that the double prize or quad prize penalty counts toward that game counting for the match. So if the one player has taken 2 prizes and the opponent got a double prize penalty, so now they only need to draw 2 more cards to win the game, that counts as making that game count toward the match. Okay, so now they did not get that into the documents. There was a question and response on the Professor Forums, response from Organized Play, and Organized Play said that's the way to handle it, that those basically the text will be changed or read as that the prizes in the penalty count toward making that game count. Okay, that's a little bit different, but that's something that needs to be understood for any time you're in Top Cut. So League Cups, you don't need to worry about it for pre-releases. You don't need to worry about it for League Challenges. But anything, a League Cup or anything larger, you're going to have that. Okay? So that's about it. I covered the penalties, and I covered the importance of issuing those penalties. And best of luck.